about to hear a revolution in talk radio, Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio here in the good old USA to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Folks, thank you so much for listening in. Whoever is listening in, I must confess that I have been away from a long time. I want to tell you a little historical just for about 10 seconds. I started doing this back, I think, in 2003 on Blog Talk Radio many, many years ago. And I was at the forefront of this whole thing of having a broadcast. I did it twice a week religiously for years until I got my own studio, etc. And then things happened, you know. In fact, this month I will be the ripe old age of, young age, I should say, of 77. Believe it or not, I'm 70. I can't believe I'm that old, you know. But as time went by, a lot of complications came out. I had to close my studio because of illnesses, and then I wound up with a stroke and all that stuff. But everything turned out fine. But it's been very difficult for me to get back into the groove of doing this on a regular basis. Now, tomorrow, I hope to have Andy Sutton. He's an economist. Tomorrow in, but I did want to do my own broadcast as I used to do back in the old days, and I hope to continue that so that I can start mouthing off again as I used to do back in the old days. My concern right now, oh, by the way, I have to admit that I'm a New Yorker, all right? So when people talk about New York and people in New York, I was born in Harlem. East Harlem, New York, 123rd Street and First Avenue. Back in those days, life was totally different. The gangs did run the place, you know. There was the Second Avenue gang, and then there was the Red Wings, which was the real biggest gang in New York. And George Clemente, who was the head of the gang I went to school with, and he was always trying to, you know, get me to join in, which I didn't want to do, but he always wanted to be friends with me. I was afraid I was going to get killed or something. But I come from the streets, and when you come from the streets and you come from an area that at that time there was no government. The streets were run by the people. And quite frankly, even to a certain extent, I'm not kidding you, the mafia. Now, I'm not saying they ran things, but when someone got out of hand and disappeared, everyone knew what happened. We understood. We understood the reason why and who did it and the whole bit. But of course, no one ever said anything. But there was a rule of law, a very, very strict rule of law. And there was a tremendous amount of respect. I remember if you went to the coffee shop, for example, and I never went to the coffee, I was too young, but there was a coffee shop on 116th Street, you know, my friend Joey Proto used to live there, and George Medici, everybody, you know. And everyone had a nickname, by the way. I was Joey Popcorn, there was Nicky Beans, Louis Fish Eyes, everyone had a nickname, you know. And you know, and there was a matter of respect, and that it's difficult to translate. But let me give you an example. If I was sitting in the Chocolate, that was the coffee shop on 116th Street and Pleasant Avenue, or Palladino now Avenue, and let's say Paulie, he was a senior citizen there, came in with his cane, you know, and there were no seats. And so he'd wait there. One of the older guys, when I say older guys, I mean their 20s or 30s, we'd get up and see some guys, young guys, sitting there having coffee, talking this and that. He'd grab one by the ear. I'm not kidding you. They'd grab him by the ear like this, lift him up and say, "You can't see Paulie standing there. Where's your respect?" Slap him in the face, throw him out. And they said, Paul, and of course Paulie said, "Oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay." And he said, no, you got to sit there. And there was a rule. Everything had a principle. There was a principle behind everything. And quite frankly, although I live here in, the middle of America now, it's supposed to be a wonderful place, I miss Harlem. I miss Harlem because I miss the principles behind everything that was done. There was a principle. Now, sometimes it got out of hand and people, for some reason, disappeared. You understand what I mean? I was not part of that at all. But, you sort of understood why. You justified it in your own head. But it was a very, very strong principle of respect. And people helped one another. Very important. People helped one another. I live at 2407 First Avenue, right above, Morris's grocery store. And things were so different then. My mother used to send me shopping, going downstairs, 1 flight of steps, by the way, and 10 steps this way, and I was in Morris's grocery store. And during that period of time, money was important. I mean, every penny was important. And I remember one time she gave me, I think, 61 or 63 cents. I don't remember which one, immaterial, obviously, And I went down there and she said, "You better not spend anything over that." She says, "I expect change." And I go, "Oh, yes, Mom. Yeah, I will do." Went down, and I'd go there and I'd have to almost argue, with Morris. I was a little kid. I'm arguing with this old man, an older man, I should say, about a pickle, about 3 slices of ham, very thinly sliced, things like that. Every single penny counted. We counted on no one but family. My aunt lived around the corner, and then my grandmother lived around the corner in Brownstones. And there was family. And even if you had no family, the people who lived there were family. Everyone helped each other. No one ever expected for the government to do anything for them. No one did anything for you. You did for yourself. And it was a tough neighborhood. There was a funeral parlor right on the next corner, and we were right near we were one store front from the corner, and then there was a gas station across the street, and then there was a funeral parlor. Well, sometimes a funeral parlor, they didn't have a body in there, they were like moving stuff. Let me put it that way. and sometimes a rival gang or someone would come by, and I would be sitting on my windowsill, and of course we had the little window gate, so you couldn't fall out. I sit there and I would literally watch a gunfight, a real gun. This was not TV, this was real, this was live, and there would be people shooting each other, and I would be watching it. It was like entertainment to me. But I'm just saying that I came from a different era where respect was the most important word you can have in your mind. And there was a woman at 2409 First Avenue. You're not going to believe this, and I don't expect you to believe this, but this is the truth. And she lived on the the second floor up from the factory that was there. She was so poor, she couldn't afford a clock, and she used to wait for me to walk to go to the park, so she can yell out. She'd say, "Joey, what time is it?" And I would have to always know what the time was when I left, because I knew she was going to ask me what time it was, so I can tell her what time it was. I don't remember her name. But this is how poor they were. My Uncle Sally had a butcher shop, and the people who lived in this place didn't have enough money for the rent. And he told me, he said one time, now I don't know if this was true. I really don't know if it's true. I mean, I know some of it is true. I don't know how true it was, But my Uncle Sally didn't lie or tell fibs, He said the people in my building, he says that they don't have the rent, they don't have the money. I said, well, Uncle Sally, what do you do? He says, I make them live there. And my point in telling you this, I come from a world that is so different than today. There was no government, And even sometimes when someone, how could I say, disappeared. They took a permanent vacation. Other people understood why, and everyone kept their mouth shut. Now, not that people were doing anything wrong, but you suspected, he shouldn't have done that. He disappeared. But there was a tremendous rule of law. Although it wasn't exactly the written law, but it was a rule of law that everyone respected, and we lived there in harmony. Now, was it a racially mixed neighborhood? Believe it or not, yes. My best friend was Carlos. He was Puerto Rican, right? He lived on 24th Street, right around the corner from me, in a high-rise building. High-rise, it was 4 stories tall, Beautiful building, And, it was a mixture. Now, there weren't many black people there at the time, but eventually, they integrated and whatever. Well, Mayor Wagner came in, decided all the houses have to be knocked down. They were all beautiful houses with gardens in the back, people who grow food and stuff like that. They put low-cost housing projects there. Of course, we wouldn't qualify for it because we actually had a job with money. We weren't rich, but we had regular income. We had, I guess, at the time, it was considered average daily income, whatever it was. And so the only people who were eligible were people who didn't have jobs. So we had to move out. All the beautiful buildings, beautiful brownstones, were all destroyed. Put high-rise government subsidized towers in there. Of course, the only people who can get in there are people who had, children with no husband, and the whole story. I don't have to go through that. Instant slum, instant crime, instant government subsidies. And this is where we are today. I'm telling you that only because I don't come from this world. I come from a world, a past world. And it's disturbing for me, very disturbing for me, when things are bad. When I was young, you buckle down. You did without. You didn't borrow money. No one borrowed money. I never remembered anyone borrowing money for anything, Even if you started a business, somehow you started a business. You didn't borrow money. Maybe you got a partner, but you didn't borrow money. And today, we print money out of thin air. Now remember, when I was a kid, we're on a gold standard. I mean, a penny was a penny, et cetera. Of course, it wasn't made out of gold, but the dime, the quarter were silver. The $half was silver. The dollar was silver. And of course, the paper money was backed by gold. So it was everyone understood the principle. Everyone was in harmony with one another. Now, were there racial tensions and were there economic problems? Absolutely. I'm not saying this was nirvana. People were dancing in the street. No, it was tough. I got to tell you one thing that you will not believe. First Avenue used to be 2 ways. It went one way when they had First Avenue go north and Second Avenue go south. When they did that, it was an opportunity for the older kid. When I say older kids, at the time, the older kids were like 12, 13, 14, they would play ball. They would play ball in between the red lights on First Avenue, very heavily traveled. When red light came, the teams went out there, pitched the ball, hit the ball, ran the bases on the street, on the street, both sides, which were all going north at the time. And then when it changed, everyone got off of the street. I mean, and we used to stay there all day watching play ball. I mean, I come from a world that most people could not even dream of, could not understand. They can't. You cannot comprehend the life that I lived, that I loved so much. It was everyone took care of each other. Everybody took care of each other. I never heard anything like, well, the government program. There was no government programs, If someone was starving, we helped them. We gave them food. Everyone. The neighborhood was a neighborhood. It was everyone belonged there. There were young people there. There were old people. There was Jewish people there. There were Italian people there. There were, you name it, we had them. But it wasn't easy. The Second Avenue gang, the gang leader, Richie, he He didn't like me for some reason. Every time I went to the park to go on the swings, he beat the hell out of me. I mean, I got beat up so many times, I can't tell you. I got used to getting beat. If I didn't get beat up, I felt good. I felt like I didn't get the flu or something, like that. And his name, his name was Jimmy, And one day I was on my skates and he pushed me and I got this little kink in my tooth, a little chip off my tooth right here. That's when I was, I guess about 11 years old or something like that. He pushed me into the stoop, with the lion thing on it, the whatever they call it. Anyway, and it chipped this tooth. This is a reminder of my days in Harlem, right? And I took off my and I never fought back because I was afraid of this guy because he was the head of the gang. And he always had his two warlords with him. So I took my shoes off, my skates off, went up to him, and beat the living hell out of him. I mean, I knocked him out. I kept on punching his face. His warlords were so taken aback. They were afraid. They didn't touch me. They thought I was a monster or something like that. No one ever attacked the warlord back. Nobody. And here I am, and I had him on the floor, and I threw him out in the street. I meant to kill him. That's how mad I was. He didn't get hit by a car. I wanted him to get hit by a car at the time. But he didn't get hit, And they never bothered me again. My point is that everyone had their top point, their bottom point, their good points, their bad points. But we lived together harmoniously in one way, shape, or form. The only thing that was absent in my streets in Harlem was the government. No one ever thought of the government. I mean, the government what? Maybe you had something to do with the government if you were in the army or something. But no, everyone took care of each other. Very few people had any money whatsoever. Even the tire store, most of their business was re-grooving tires. Re-grooving. I bet you never heard of that before. In other words, people had an old tire. Instead of treating the tire, they brought the tire in, and if there was still some rubber in it, they put it in a machine that would make a new groove in it, so you get like another 10,000 miles out of it. I mean, it was absolutely amazing everything that was done at the time. And there were factories there. There was factories. There was a metal fabricating factory underneath the brownstone. Gigantic factory. Because there was no rules and regulations that you can't have a factory here or ordinances as to what can be built and cannot be built. And when I was a kid, I was fascinated because I used to pass by. I was afraid of the place because you'd look down there. It was very wide. So it was the entire building wide, for that brownstone. And you look down and all I saw was sparks. And I had to run right across because I was afraid of the place, I bring this up only because that was America. That was the freedom of America. That was individualism. Even the bad people, and there were a lot of bad people in Harlem. Let me tell you something. There were bad people. I make fun of the mafia and things like that, my uncle being the mafia, whatever, But let me tell you something. There were no one to fool with. You had to be very respectful. And one thing that at least they instill in everyone, you respect everybody. You respect your elders, And you never forget, you make, poor Paulie stand there with this cane, you better be prepared. You're going to get kicked, But it was a different world. So my point being is that when I watch the news today of Trump, and by the way, because I'm from New York, I lived in New York when Trump was in New York, and I think I have a better, I didn't know him. I never met him, had nothing to do with him, but we sort of all knew Trump, We didn't know Trump as voters know Trump, I mean, no one would give Trump a dime because they'd never get it back and they'd wind up getting sued for doing it, No one would touch him. And people didn't know that, And now, that's not, I don't know that to be a fact, but it was sort of the words that were going around that, you want to borrow money, you didn't want to lend it to him, because you didn't have that faith in this guy, Well, so I have a different view of Trump than most people. Now, I have a real problem today with the government coming out and saying, you know, we've got this virus, people are dying. I don't dismiss that at all. It's a tragedy for the United States. There is evidence that if you eat, and there's many MDs, doctors, and researchers that say people who eat this way and that take these type of supplements have a much lower chance, lower probability of catching this disease. Now, it's not scientifically proven, but these doctors have already done the research because they work on people, and they figured they realized that the people who had adequate amounts of vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, for example, you know, I'm not giving advice now, you know, they're saying these people come in, 2 days later they're out of the hospital. You know, those people with vitamin deficiencies don't get out of the hospital so quickly, and many of them die. But my point being is that you don't hear that. You don't hear anything that makes the individual independent of the government. Independent. Just like in Harlem, everybody was independent. We know what the government was. We know nothing, you know? And the only thing I know about the government is Mayor Wagner came over to my father's house because he owned a little factory, you know, underneath the house, you know, where the ladies used to they sold gloves for Kaiser Roth Corporation, you know. And he came over because all the business owners had to be visited by the mayor for some reason. And he came over my house. I remember that, you know. He told my father, you're out. You're out. Come on. You know, we're going to demolish the whole place. You got this many weeks to sell your business and get the hell out, and good luck to you. Goodbye, you know. And that was really nice, you know. Of course, now to turn to a slum, there were no jobs. All the people who were unemployable, uneducated, no money, single family moms, single parent moms, whatever, you know, children with just the mom or the dad or whatever, you know. They lived there. They wound up in the high-rise subsidized housing, which were really, really dangerous places. You don't ever want to go there. I know that one of my jobs in New York when I was very young, I collected money. I know all about these places, all about it anyway. But I did it for a finance company, most dangerous job in New York City. I had it. And let me tell you, I can write a book about it. But you never, ever, if you went to a high-rise subsidized building, you never, ever went in the elevator. You went in the elevator, you never got home. Anyway, another story. But but everyone relied on themselves. So my father just accepted the fact that the place was, you know, a clean place, nothing wrong with it, but they knocked everything down. He opened a new place on 126th Street, and right in the middle of where all the riots took place back in the 50s, by the way. I remember going to work with a National Guardsman and a shield over my head and an automatic weapon. Well, no, I didn't hold him. He had an automatic weapon and a shield, and he had to guide me to work because, you know, it was very dangerous at the time. So anyway, that's another story. But my point being is that I came from a different era. I don't buy this bull, this garbage that the government's got to print trillions of dollars. Now, do we need it? Absolutely. You know, should the government be printing it? Absolutely not. We all have to take care of one another. We become a bifurcated society where people no longer connect with one another. We all become our own little individual entity, you know, where I live in this nice place, nice subdivision, very, very nice. People are very nice. No one knows each other. Nobody knows anything. You know, I see him, hello. If you ask me what their name says, well, I've known the guy for about 22 years. What are his names? Well, I don't know. I have no idea what his name is. You know, I just said, hello. I guess his name is hello, you know. But we don't have that today. We don't have what we had, believe it or not, in the streets of Harlem, where people say, oh, that must have been a horrible place. It was a wonderful place because the entire atmosphere of the place was different. Now, here we are. The government's going to come out and give everyone money. Now, even the dumbest person in Harlem would say, you can't do that. If you print money, you know what happens? Every dime is worth less than a dime. And if you do it again, it's going to be worth less than a nickel until it becomes worthless. What are you, stupid? I mean, this is what they would say to you. And they'd be absolutely right. Our currency has gone down the toilet. It's nowhere. You can't print money. Where's it come from? And you know what really galls me? What galls me is that they showed this on TV where they voted for this, and the Senate voted for it first, which was illegal. It had to come from the House of Representatives. The House voted for it, right? But no, they didn't vote for it. They just had a call out like, all in favor, yay, all in favor, against, yay, no, you raise your hand. No, you have to vote. No one voted. It was just a show of hands, and they guesstimated who got the higher number of people for or against. And no discussion. Now, that's bad enough, but this thing that they voted on didn't have only to do with the crisis that we're having. They threw in a big income package for themselves. Now, folks, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. You got to vomit when you hear this stuff, You got a coronavirus. They're voting coronavirus, but they just sneak in other things. Now, it was like, I forgot how many hundreds of pages this legislation was. What do you need hundreds of pages for? You're voting on a virus. A paragraph would be fine. But no, because in there, they had all sorts of other special items, gifts and, things that they couldn't pass through normally. And they sort of threw everything in. And now all this is going to come out. And who's paying for it? You and me. But the question is, no one asks. NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox News, MSNBC, none of these clowns say, by the way, where's this money coming from? They'll say, oh, boy, we have all this relief. Isn't this wonderful? We have this money now that the people can use, and we can prosper and get the economy back on its shape. Bull! Back in 1919, people lost their jobs. When Calvin Coolidge was told, he said, worst depression, by the way, worst depression in the United States was 1919 with Calvin Coolidge in office. Worst depression. You know why you don't hear it? Because the government was kicked in the head. He said, good, we're going to eliminate the number of people in Washington, and there weren't many people at that time, by 50%. They said, you can't do that. He said, watch me. And within a couple of weeks, 50% of Washington was out the window. And none of the severance pay, and we'll pay you on the side, and you'll get special dispensation and food stamps. Nothing. You got nothing. You're out. Goodbye. And he cut all spending 50%. Now, you don't know of the greatest recession, which was not 1929, but not 1919 or 1920. Because government was the bad guy, not the good guy. And when they got rid of government spending, it bounced back within 18 months, and when it bounced back, it far exceeded the height of the previous to the recession. So it was here, went all the way down to here, and when it came back to here. And what that was saying is, get government out. Stop spending. Say, did people suffer? You bet, but it was temporary. But at those time when you didn't have a job, you ate at your grandmother's house like I did. We got together. We cooked for each other. People took care of people. Government didn't do anything. But you never hear of that recession. You don't hear of it because it was effective. It was the only effective way to get out of recession, and we did it in spades, and it took less than 18 months. In 1929, when the Great Recession, that wasn't the greatest, it was the second greatest recession, by the way, came by, right? We never got out of it. They say we got out of it World War II. We didn't get out of it. All we did was start producing airplanes for the war, started printing money like crazy, and it changed things from a solid economy to a softer economy with lots of money. So no, we didn't get out of the recession, the depression, and we always owed money from that, and we never paid it back. And now look, we are. We did well afterwards because all the other countries around the world, we're gone, dead. They had no manufacturing. So we became the sort of the China, what China is today to the world. We were the old China, if you will, supplying goods to everybody. So of course we bounced back. I mean, we were the only manufacturing country on the planet. I mean, Germany was a big manufacturing company, flattened down. Even Eastern Europe flattened down. French flattened down. Britain. Everyone was gone and broke from the war. But the United States had manufacturing capacity, made all this money back. But we don't tell history. We don't tell the true history. What we're doing by giving everyone paychecks is just increasing our debt. Now, real economists will tell you that our debt is somewhere in the vicinity of $250 of $1 quadrillion. Oh, this was some time ago. I would imagine now it is closer to a third of $1 quadrillion, not trillion, quadrillion dollars. There's four. All right. So you have $1 million, which is a lot of money. You have $1 billion, which is a lot of money. Then you got $1 trillion, which is a humongous amount of money. Then you have quadrillion, which is an unbelievable amount of money. And that's where our true debt is. Now you say, Joe, you think you're such a smart face, what would you do? All right. First of all, I would ask people in the United States to help and love one another. Help each other, regardless of your race, color, or creed. Let's come together as Americans. If you're a stay-at-home mom and you're cooking something, cook something extra if you have the money and give it to a neighbor who lost their job. I can go on for hours on that, but I'm not going to do it. But we should all take care of each other. Government should get out of the way. All government regulations off the board, just like they did in 1919. Gone. Forget about it. All gone. Let the free market. Let the free market reign. Maybe this was our opportunity to reinitiate the free market so that we would become a free nation again. But the couple of things that I would do right off the bat is I would reduce the size of government not by 50%, by 90%. That's the first thing I would do. They say, Joe, what about all those people out of jobs? Hey, these people are making fortunes. They got more money than you and me. They can last without a job for years. Even people in the lower end. Yeah, even people in the lower end. They have phenomenal salaries and benefits, So maybe you want to keep their benefits, but their salaries have to go. And at the same time that we do that, the most important thing we should do is close every single military base around the world. Every one of them closes, and everyone comes home, and we park all the ships and all the tanks and put them out in Utah somewhere and just pile them up somewhere. We're not going to war with anyone. We're not going to harass someone into doing what we want them to do. Now, those are two things that I would do right off the bat. And I'm not being mean. I mean, I have a company that does work under government regulations. I would have to close that company, or it would downsize it significantly. I am willing to take that loss. I mean, that would be my contribution to solving America's problems. I would not gain by that. I'm speaking against myself. So my point being is that we as a nation should start realizing that printing more money does not solve our problems. It just magnifies the problems, and then the solution has got to be made down the road a lot more painful. And when are we going to realize that? And by the way, it has nothing to do with Republican, Democrat. Oh, you don't like Trump, you like Trump. It has nothing to do with it whatsoever. I just wish people would start being human again. Stop being puppets of a Republican or Democrat party or any party. I don't care what party it is. You know, they want to have universal basic income and all. Where does this come from? I mean, even Russia would say, that's stupid. You're going to put yourself in bankruptcy, you idiots. Now, who do I blame? Let me get there. Well, first of all, I blame the government, but the government is in there because they want to make money and you're going to pay for it. And so I blame the people basically for the government we have. Right? And yet, we don't teach any of this in school. No, we don't teach anything. If it has anything to do with doing away with a government program, they don't talk about it. In fact, if a teacher even suggests that at school, they lose their job. So we have a school system that's no good. So I would close all the military bases around the world, save billions, probably much more than billions of dollars every year. And we would have friendlier neighbors. And I would get rid of things like the UN and all this other stupid garbage that's been totally ineffective. Now, if you want to belong to, we can belong to the union, but I wouldn't pay more than $50 a year dues. And I wouldn't have all these cars and these diplomats that we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to. For what? What do? They don't do adrip. They do nothing. I would cut everything out. Everything. All regulations out the board. That's what we did back in 1919. We didn't do it in 1929. Depression never went away. Never went away. It's still there. Still with us, by the way. In a very small extent. So, I'm sorry I ranted so long. Geez, I ranted a long time. But I hope this gives you at least insight as to the way I think, why I think, and I think I'm right. And I'm not right too often, but I think I'm right on this one. Why do we have military bases? We have 40 military bases in Japan. Oh, thank heavens, because if we didn't have 40 military bases in Japan, Japan would be flying planes and rockets and ships on our shore and bombing the hell out of us, right? No. You know that, and I know that. That's their major training partner. If anyone hurt us, Japan would be the first one to defend us. Because they need the they need the products that they make. They need to sell here. They want to make sure we're whole. From a very if you look at it from a very selfish point of view. So, I don't know if many people were able to withstand listening to this broadcast as long as it was, as rambling as it was, and as unoutlined as it was. But I wanted you to know where I'm coming from. There was a rule of conduct that I grew up with. It was unwritten that I don't see anymore. People helping people, not government. I give thousands of dollars every year to various organizations. They know who I am. They don't force me. Now, I get solicitations. I get about a dozen solicitations a day because I give too much money out. And if everyone wants to get on the gravy train, so that I get them every day, I got to punch them out. I have to throw half. I'd say 90% of it gets thrown away because I can't give to everyone. I mean, literally, I would have to get a third job at my age, just to send them a donation, which I don't plan to do, by the way. Not that I don't want to, I don't plan to do it. So I just, maybe today was just a start-off day, where we can start rethinking of really what the right thing is. All this stuff about Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, oh my God, the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution never said anything. And I blame our school system, because our school system teaches our children nothing. They teach our children to be dependent on the government. That's all they do. And I think I'll leave you with that. So with that, I think what I'll do is I'll end the show by saying I want to thank you very much. If you even listened in for 5 minutes, you probably had to strain yourself. I realize that. But for those of you who listened to the whole thing, God bless you. I mean, go get a drink on me, Okay? And tomorrow night we're going to have... I think tomorrow night, I haven't confirmed it yet, Andy Sutton, and he's going to talk about the economics of what is going on. Until that time, see you again.